Welcome back, everyone. It's December 26th, 2024, and we're going to dive into some of the top stories from the Observer Group newspapers of Southern California.
Mm.
We've got quite a mix this week. A shocking school lawsuit, some really inspiring social justice work going on, and we'll even touch on the latest report on hate crimes in LA County. Oh, and of course, we can't forget about the Chargers. You know,
Yeah.
we've got to talk about the Charger.
Feeling an interesting deep dive for sure. So where should we begin?
Let's start with this school lawsuit. This case is really unsettling. It involves a 14-year-old black student, we'll call him CSDOE, who's filed a $10 million lawsuit against Verdugo High School. His lawyer is claiming that the school just completely failed to protect him from, just relentless racial bullying.
Yeah, it's way beyond just typical schoolyard teasing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This lawsuit, it outlines a really horrifying pattern of harassment. It allegedly started back in August with a video of CSDOE being attacked. And these attacks, they just kept happening, even after the school was made aware of what was going on.
It's unbelievable. The lawsuit even alleges that the school, instead of actually dealing with the problem, they asked CSDOE to transfer schools, like as if that would solve anything.
Right. It's just it's a really troubling response. It makes
Yeah.
you wonder about their priorities and their commitment to actually, ensuring the safety and well-being of all their students.
Absolutely. And
Ugh.
sadly, the situation escalated even further earlier this month. CSDOE was attacked again. This time, a knife was involved, and he ended up getting arrested for assault with a deadly weapon.
Wow. It's awful to hear. His lawyer, Carrie Harper, she's arguing self-defense, though. And she's drawing a parallel to the Menendez brothers case, remember? Where they claim that their violent actions, they were a result of years of abuse.
Yeah, it's a very powerful analogy, and it raises some really important questions
Yeah.
about how,
Mm-hmm.
race and age, and the whole concept of justice, how they all intersect in these kinds of situations.
For sure. It's a complex issue. And unfortunately, the trauma for this young man and his family, it didn't end there, even after he was released. They faced even more harassment. Racial slurs were spray painted on their home. It's just heartbreaking.
It's just a constant reminder that this hate and this prejudice, it runs so deep and has such a lasting impact on individuals and families.
Right. It's a problem that goes way beyond just isolated incidents.
Let's shift gears a bit to a story that offers,
Yeah.
a little bit of hope amidst all this heaviness. Have you heard about the Black Equity Collective, BEC?
Yeah. They're doing such important work supporting Black-led organizations across California.
They are. And they're addressing a really critical issue.
Yeah.
The fact that Black-led organizations have been historically underfunded, which has really limited their ability to serve their communities effectively.
Yeah, it's a systemic problem. And what I find really impressive about BEC is not just the amount of money they've raised, which is a lot, like over $55.5 million over the past 10 years, but how they've gone about it.
So what's their secret?
Well, they've taken this data-driven approach. They conducted this economic impact study to really showcase the contributions of Black-led organizations to the California economy. And this strategy, it's been incredibly effective. It's helped them to surpass their membership goals and to really secure significant funding.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So they're not just relying on emotional appeals. They're presenting hard evidence.
Exactly. And Kasasi Peterson, the founder of BEC, she really emphasizes the power of that beta-driven advocacy. But she's also been very vocal about her frustration with the decline in philanthropic investment after, the initial surge of support following the George Floyd movement and the height of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, it's so disheartening to see that cycle of attention, where people rally around a cause during moments of crisis. But then that commitment, it just fades over time.
Right. It's like people's attention spans, they're just so short.
It's tough because sustaining that commitment over the long term, that's where the real change happens.
Exactly. And that's why organizations like BEC, they're so vital. They're providing that consistent support. And they're working to address these issues systematically, regardless of whether it's, the hot topic of the moment or not.
Right. And their work, it's having a real impact. Peterson actually points to the establishment of a doula hug in Los Angeles as a prime example of their policy advocacy in action. It's a community-led solution. That's really making a difference in the lives of Black mothers and families.
That's fantastic. It shows that targeted advocacy, it can lead to these tangible improvements in people's lives. And it also highlights the importance of empowering communities to identify their own needs and advocate for solutions.
For sure. But despite these successes, Peterson is also very clear-eyed about the challenges that remain. When asked about the biggest hurdle facing Black Californians, she responded with one word: erasure.
Erasure. It's a powerful word,
Mm.
and something that can manifest in so many ways.
Yeah. She talked about how it can be the lack of funding for vital organizations, or the silencing of Black voices, or the denial of Black history and culture. It's essentially an attempt to diminish the presence and contributions of Black communities.
Right. To make it seem like their experiences and their perspectives, they don't matter.
Exactly. And BEC, they're actively fighting back against that erasure by promoting this narrative of Black permanence. They want to celebrate the enduring legacy and the contributions of Black people in California and beyond.
It's a beautiful vision. And it's a much-needed counter-narrative in a society that often tries to marginalize or erase Black voices.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about other communities, too, and the ways in which they might experience erasure as well.
Yeah, it's a concept that has broad applications.
Yeah.
And speaking of fighting for recognition and justice, let's talk about the work of Chris Lodgson and the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJEC. This organization, they're taking a really unique approach to addressing the legacy of slavery and discrimination in California.
Yeah. They're advocating for something called lineage-based reparations, which is different from, more traditional models that focus on individual claims.
So how does that work?
Well, lineage-based reparations, they aim to compensate for the systemic and intergenerational harm caused by slavery and racism.
Interesting. And I understand that a key part of this approach is the collection of what's called lineage data.
Right. It's essentially about tracing the ancestry of Black Californians to document the historical injustices that they've endured.
It's about acknowledging and potentially addressing those harms of the past.
Exactly. And CJC has been really instrumental in pushing for this data collection, which is it's a major step forward.
Lodgson seems incredibly proud of this achievement. He's talked about how it's a crucial step in making sure that Black Californians are truly seen and heard.
I can understand why he feels that way. It's about acknowledging their history and their experiences in a way that's never really been done before.
But he's also been very open about the frustrations he's faced, navigating the political landscape. He's mentioned how some bills supporting reparations have been blocked or vetoed, and there have even been disagreements within the California Legislative Black Caucus on how to best move forward.
Right. It shows how complex this issue is and how, even within the Black community, there are different perspectives on how to address these historical wrongs.
For sure. But despite those challenges, Lodgson remains optimistic. He draws inspiration from the grassroots support for reparations, both here in California and across the nation.
That's great to hear, because that grassroots support, it's essential for creating real change.
He's also been encouraged by the increased political awareness and engagement within the Black community.
Yeah, that's something to celebrate. The more people are informed and engaged, the more likely we are to see progress.
And when asked about the biggest challenge, Lodgson summed it up with one word: power. He specifically called for Black Californians to wield more political power, to achieve meaningful change. He's not interested in symbolic gestures, or what he calls symbolic reparations, like apologies or the reinstatement of affirmative action.
Right. He wants to see concrete policy shifts that address the economic and social disparities that persist due to historical and ongoing discrimination.
He wants action, not just words. His ultimate goal is the passage and enactment of genuine reparations legislation in 2025.
It's an ambitious goal, but given the momentum building around this issue, it's not impossible.
It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
It will. And, it's important to acknowledge that these are heavy topics. It can be emotionally draining to really delve into these issues.
You're absolutely right. It's important to take care of ourselves while engaging with these difficult conversations. So maybe a quick detour into the world of sports would be a nice break before we dive back into the heavier news.
I think that's a great idea. So how about those Chargers? I heard their game against the Denver Broncos was quite a show.
Ooh, it was a nail-biter. And a crucial game for their playoff hopes. Let's break it down.
It was a big one. Divisional matchup. Huge playoff implications. Both the Chargers and the Broncos, they're known for their defenses, but this game turned into an absolute shootout. The Broncos, they were coming in hot with a 4-game winning streak led by their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. And the Chargers, they were hoping to bounce back, after a couple of tough losses.
Right. So the first half was pretty back and forth, both teams trading touchdowns. I was really impressed with Bo Nix, though. He completed 29 of 40 passes for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. He even showed off his mobility a bit with a couple of key runs. What about the first half stood out to you?
Well, the thing that I'll remember most, and I think a lot of viewers will too, is that crazy play right before halftime We saw something you don't see very often in the NFL, a fair catch kick.
Oh, yeah. That was wild. So for those who didn't see it, with just seconds left on the clock, the Broncos defender, he collided with Chargers punt returner Darius Davis, and it was ruled fair catch interference, which gave the Chargers this really interesting option. They could take a free kick. So basically, a stationary holder, no rush from the opposing team, and the kicker attempts a field goal from the spot of the fair catch, just like it was a kickoff.
Right. And this was the first successful fair catch kick since 1976.
Oh, no, crazy. Right. Chargers kicker Cameron Dicker. Oh. He nailed it, 57-yard attempt, and it totally shifted the momentum of the game.
Coach Jim Harbaugh was loving it. He even called it his favorite rule in football. And you could just feel that energy carry over into the second half.
For sure. The Chargers defense, they came out strong, held the Broncos to just a field goal in the second half. And Justin Herbert, oh, man, he just came alive, led the Chargers on some really impressive scoring drives. He finished the game with 284 passing yards, 23 of 31 completions, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and one of those touchdowns was just spectacular. Herbert scrambled to his left,
Boy.
threw across his body, and connected perfectly with Darius Davis in the end zone. It was a gutsy throw and a huge play for the Chargers.
It was, and in the end, the Chargers pulled out the win, 34-20, which bumped them up to the 6th seed in the AFC playoff race.
A much-needed win, for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about resilience on the field with the Chargers and in the community with groups like the Black Equity Collective and CJEC. But we're also seeing a surge in hate and intolerance. Right here in LA County, a recent report from the LA County Commission on Human Relations, LACCHR, revealed some pretty alarming trends.
Yeah, the report showed a 45% increase in hate crimes from 2022 to 2023, with a record-breaking 3,350 incidents reported. And what's really concerning is that this hate is directed towards a wide range of communities: African Americans, the LGBTQ+ community, Jewish people, Asian Americans, transgender individuals, Latinos. It's a lot.
It is. It's really disturbing. They make you wonder, is this increase? Is it because reporting systems are getting better?
That's definitely part of it. The LA versus hate reporting system, it's made it easier for victims to come forward. They can report online or by calling 211. So that increased accessibility, it's a good thing in terms of raising awareness and making sure victims can get the support they need. But the fact that we're seeing an actual increase in incidents, that's definitely cause for concern.
Right. It suggests that something deeper is going on. The report also breaks down the numbers by different groups, and there were some really troubling trends. For example, African Americans were the most frequent targets of racial hate crimes, with a record high of 320 incidents. We also saw huge increases in anti-transgender crimes, up 125%, anti-Semitic crimes up 91%, and increases in anti-LGBTQ+ crimes, anti-Asian crimes, and anti-Latino crimes. All of these categories, they reached their highest recorded numbers ever.
It's really disheartening.
It is. So, do you think there are specific factors driving these increases in these particular communities?
Well, it's hard to say for sure without more in-depth analysis. But we do often see spikes in hate crimes during times of, heightened social and political tension. Like, for instance, the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes during the pandemic. A lot of that was linked to, harmful rhetoric blaming Asian people for the virus. And similarly, the increase in anti-transgender hate crimes could be connected to the surge in discriminatory legislation targeting trans people in certain states.
So, fear and misinformation, they seem to play a big role in fueling these attacks.
Yeah.
But what can we actually do about it? How do we combat this rising tide of hate?
Well, the LA versus Hate Initiative, they've been doing some great work, providing support services to victims like counseling and legal aid. They've also launched a new training series called the Combating Anti-Blackness Training Series, which is aimed at addressing systemic racism within institutions.
That's good to hear. So they're taking a multifaceted approach.
They are. And it's important to remember that we all have a role to play here. We can't just stay silent. Silence is complicity. If you see something, say something. If you hear someone making hateful comments, don't let it slide. Speak up, even if it's uncomfortable.
You're right. We can't be passive bystanders. We have to actively challenge these attitudes and behaviors. The report also pointed out a 46% rise in school-based hate crimes, which accounted for 10% of all the reported incidents.
That's a really disturbing statistic. It shows the importance of, anti-bias education programs in schools. We need to teach young people how to recognize and challenge prejudice and discrimination early on.
We've covered a lot today. It's been a pretty heavy deep dive.
It has.
It can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely. These are complex issues with deep roots, and it's easy to feel discouraged.
How do we stay engaged without getting completely bogged down by the negativity.
Well, it's important to remember that change takes time. It's a gradual process, and it happens through collective effort and sustained action. It's easy to get caught up in the headlines and the dramatic events, but real progress often happens incrementally through small acts of kindness, courageous conversations, and persistent advocacy.
That's a good reminder. Is there anything from all of these stories that's really stuck with you?
You know, I keep thinking about Cassie Peterson's statement about Black permanence. It's such a powerful concept, this idea of actively resisting erasure, of celebrating the enduring presence and contributions of Black communities. It's a call to action, a reminder that we have to constantly challenge those narratives that seek to diminish or erase the experiences of marginalized groups.
That's powerful. What about you? Anything particularly resonate with you? I think for me was Chris Lodgson's dedication
to, achieving genuine reparations for Black Californians. His focus on power as the key challenge really made me think about how important political engagement and advocacy are. If we want to create lasting change, he's not messing around. He wants to see real change, real policy shifts, not just empty gestures.
Exactly. And it reminded me that we can't just sit back and wait for others to fix things. We have to get involved. We have to be part of shaping the future.
And that involvement, it can look like a lot of different things. Staying informed, having conversations about these issues, supporting organizations like BEC and CJEC.
Right. It's funny. I was thinking about the Chargers game and how it kind of ties into all this. It might seem like a stretch. But Justin Herbert's performance, it really resonated with me.
Oh, so...
Well, he was under a lot of pressure. He made some mistakes early on, but he never gave up. He kept his cool, trusted his teammates, and in the end, he led his team to victory.
I see what you mean, that resilience, that determination.
Yeah. It's inspiring. It's a reminder that setbacks can happen, but it's how we respond to them that really matters.
Absolutely. That applies to so many aspects of life, not just sports, especially the fight for social justice.
We need that same tenacity,
Yeah.
that same commitment to progress.
And we need to remember, we're not in this alone.
Right. There's strength in collective action. We see it in the work of BEC, the advocacy of CJEC, even in the way the Chargers came together as a team.
It's good to remember that, even when things feel dark, there are always people fighting for good, working to make things better.
It can be hard to focus on that sometimes.
It can.
But those are the stories that keep me going. Stories of resilience, compassion, people who are dedicated to creating a more just and equitable world.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope those stories stay with you, inspiring you, maybe even motivate you to take action.
It all starts with each of us. Staying informed, having those tough conversations, supporting the organizations that are doing the work.
Think about it. What can you do today to make a difference? Even a small act of kindness. It can have a ripple effect.
We're all connected. Our actions matter.
So, choose kindness. Choose empathy. Be part of the solution.
That's a great note to end on.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep fighting for a better